The brain is absolutely ridiculous and one of the least understood aspects of the natural kingdom. We don't even understand how the brain of a worm works, so how on earth are we meant to comprehend our own evolved grey matter? Psychology has only been officially studied for 130 years and we're still making huge discoveries every year. My mum's a psychologist, so I grew up hearing about all this stuff and really took for granted some of the things I'd learned. So like any responsible millennial, I decided to start a podcast about it and share the sweet, sweet gift of therapy. I'm sat on the couch with my mum, Sandy. She's a psychologist with over 20 years experience studying and treating clients. Hi, Mum.
Hi.
We're going to release a new episode each week talking about a different aspect of mental health and therapy, and hopefully some of you will find it really useful. All of our episodes are filmed in lovely HD and they're all up on YouTube. Max, you do angles and everything. It's all really high tech. So go watch us on YouTube. We're sat in the living room with the fire on.
Which is nearly out.
It is nearly out now, unfortunately. Max can get some more because you're running.
In this weather.
And you can also catch us on Instagram at OnTheSofaPod. So go find us everywhere. Give us a follow if you like it. And share us with your mates so we can do more of this because it's good fun. So this month, we're doing confidence and insecurity and self-esteem and all that stuff. And last week we talked about personal insecurities and things that can affect you, I think. And this week I wanted to talk more about how relationships can really struggle with insecurity. And some of this is going to cross over with last week, I think. Like people who are personally insecure about themselves might have some of those creeping into like their relationships with other people. But also how difficult it can be to like trust a partner and like how insecurity in relationships can be a problem. Do you see this a lot?
Yeah.
How does it how does it start in a relationship when one or both of the people are insecure in some way?
Oh, there's so many angles it's untrue. So let me just think of some examples. So you can tell I'm not really prepared for this one. But so one thing I'm thinking about is, let's think of an individual male that he had a disruptive, chaotic family life. However, he survived that and he became very driven and very successful, and he didn't have many friends as a child, but he made it his business to change all that when he grew up and reached adulthood. And he didn't have an awful lot of experience with the opposite sex. And then all of a sudden he met what he termed as the perfect partner. So I was like, well, why how is she perfect? He said she's just perfect in every way. And he would say things like she keeps a beautiful home, she's a homemaker, she doesn't tell lies. I think there was a sense of no chaos but nice tight boundaries for him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he knew exactly what to expect, but it was still nice.
That's a good way to put it. However, her upbringing was very different, and while they had a lot in common in terms of sport and fly,
as in there was a fly, they didn't.
There was a fly. So sport and social things, they had an awful lot in common. She started to get a bit tired of the relationship, because she felt like her needs weren't being met, and she felt forgotten.
Interesting.
And that's probably because he didn't know how to do those things, because his life was so chaotic, not just at home but at school, and even at college. So he didn't have that skill set
of how to make someone feel valued. And right, so she started feeling like she wasn't enough in the relationship. She started feeling insecure about her, whether she was doing the right things. Yeah,
and it was pulling her confidence down and making her question herself as well. Maybe I'm not worth it. Maybe am I answering the question here? Because I do tend to go off it.
No, completely.
So you can see this crisis occurring in what essentially is a really good relationship, and And that's why I always say to people, please don't split up yet, because if at all, because we might be able to fix this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And in most cases, it's a few hours, honestly. So, anyway, they came into therapy together, and we talked through what's happening at a dynamic level.
Okay.
So from a dynamic level, he unconsciously was looking for a mum. This is so common.
The stability.
The stability, and she gave that. And initially in their relationship, there was more equilibrium. So there was love, it was fun, and etc., etc. But when the dynamics started to change, she feels like mummy and not wife. And she doesn't want him to be a child in the relationship. She wants a husband, a man.
Right.
And slowly it starts chipping away, and she feels used, and he's feeling rejected. What's happening? So it can start off very slowly and end up like a volcano.
And then people wonder what happened because it was so perfect in the beginning.
And then, because they don't understand all the dynamics and etc., they just split up whether they've got kids or not. And it's not always necessary.
Okay, that's good. Well, I mean, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Do you think it's difficult well, obviously it's difficult. Do you think it's common and easy to fix, or like where are the issues in this scenario, I guess is what I'm asking. So you've got someone who's been in a relationship for a long time and then come out of a relationship, and you know they were really happy, but it just didn't, it wasn't right for them. They've been single for a long time and they're ready to get back into another relationship, and it was very healthy. It wasn't a bad situation, and then this new person comes into their life and everything's going well, but their past relationships haven't been as healthy, and they haven't been as good. Now the first person in this relationship who's had this great past and pretty well-rounded person, let's say, they feel suddenly really insecure. And they've never felt insecure before, but the person who's had this bit difficult relationships in the past, the boy in this scenario or whatever, they think this is the best relation. This is the best thing that's ever happened. They feel really connected to this person, and they're really trying to make it work. But the female's feeling really insecure, that she's never felt insecure before. Why might that be?
So let me just get this straight.
Sorry, I butchered that explanation.
No, you didn't. I'm really tired.
As
I said, I'm tired, so I'm not as quick. So let's say we've got Bob.
Yeah.
And he was in a relationship. The relationship's broken down. He's had a couple of years on his own. But
everything was good.
Yeah.
Like, it was a very healthy relationship. They just decided it wasn't right.
Yeah.
It wasn't no trauma at all.
Okay. And then we've got Lisa.
Yeah.
Who had traumatic.
Not the best child, maybe, or a bit of trouble there, but her past relationships really haven't treated her well. But she's got into this new relationship with Bob, and she's really trying to make it work as best as possible. And she feels good about it, but Bob's feeling very insecure for some reason, and he's never felt this insecurity before.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? And he's never been the insecure type.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and Lisa isn't feeling insecure at all?
No, because Bob's obviously a good...
secure base.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
I don't know. What could have caused the insecurity? If it's not historical, then it has to be current. Could it be something to do with the way Lisa is as a person? Does he feel different with her compared to previous? Does he feel a little bit maybe out of his depth, but not out of his depth? So essentially it could all be to do with Lisa, in terms of he doesn't quite feel that he's as good as her, as confident as her, as socially...
Really?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
It's a big hypothetical, I suppose.
Yeah, because I haven't got enough data really to...
But you're saying that if someone has had this historical thing and they've never felt this before, then the issue is probably more a current thing.
I would think. I mean, if you haven't, that fly has got to die. That fly. So you need more data with something like that, if that makes sense, because you have to rule out. You have to rule out certain things, don't you?
What does breed insecurity in a relationship?
I think in certainly with a lot of people I work with, it's because the other person puts them down a lot.
Really subconsciously as well, I think that can happen. Really good people can do this without realising they're doing it. And they can do it in different ways, not just verbally. It can be a behavioural thing where we talked before about somebody leaving their dirty socks or clothes on the floor. So that can feel to the other person, well, they don't respect me because very subtle.
They expect me to do that, and that's not my job. I'm not here to do that. So I think lots of subtle things can occur, and it can start making the person feel insecure in the relationship. Another massive one is compulsive liars.
Wow, okay.
I deal a lot with compulsive liars, and they've been doing it for so long that they even believe their own lies. So a judge might say to me, can you do some tests and check out if that person is lying? And a lot of the time I can, because you can tell if someone's lying, right? Have I told you about the eyes and everything?
Yeah.
So
we could do that in our neuro-linguistic programming episode next season.
So because they believe their own lies, not even I can really fathom them.
Because they believe it.
Because they believe it. So all the normal telltale signs aren't there. So in a relationship, they often, the person that's not lying, often can tell. They can somehow tell, or they find out you're lying, and then one lie is another, and it builds up and builds up, and then they get to the point of there's no trust left, because whatever comes out of his mouth, I don't know what's true and what isn't.
And that can leave you feeling a bit empty and a bit
and why
uncertain. What
does that do to the person? It devalues them, doesn't it?
Totally.
Really? It's horrible.
Yeah. So that's the more physical things we spoke about, and obviously compulsive lie. In terms of verbal stuff, this is, I think, total manipulation, but can be very, very subtle and often unintentional, I think, as well. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, I've seen relationships where, for example, the guy in the relationship is quite insecure, and so will subconsciously put down their partner to try and, I'm assuming, bring them down to their level so they feel
equal,
or so they feel like, actually I am worth something because I'm better than this person. But it's really subtle and subconscious, and they could, that every time the other person makes a joke, they could not laugh at the joke, for example, or every time they try and make dinner, they'll be like, oh, I'm not sure about this, just making jokes about it, and constantly picking away, making little bantery comments. But over time that can undermine someone and make them feel insecure, and then when that relationship breaks down, instead of having one insecure person, now you've got two insecure people.
Yeah. And it's about learning to build that back up, and learning to be aware. So say they're both out of the relationship, and the person that's been that's developed this insecurity really needs to reevaluate how they used to be, and how has this happened. Go through that thought process of, when did this start and how has this happened?
I used to be so confident, and now I'm not anymore.
I feel like a really different person, and I don't really like myself anymore. And I think it's important that people have that break in relationships of a year or 2 years if they can, or however long it takes. It might be 4 months, I don't know, but they need to find themselves again. Because if they don't, then they run the risk
of carrying those issues into the next
forward,
relationship. Right.
And choosing the wrong person.
So this is us trying to help someone who is I'm going to say victim in a manipulative relationship where they end up being undermined. How do you notice if you're the person? Because I think these people don't generally do it on purpose. I don't think they're generally trying to belittle somebody. But how can you try and be more aware
that it's happening, or
that you're doing it to somebody else? Because I think we all do it, and I pull myself up doing it to people, and it's completely innocent. But if someone, like, for example, is like, you're all listening to music and someone's dancing in the room or whatever, if you mock them and you make a little joke about it to everybody, they're now going to feel insecure about dancing in front of people. No matter how you intended it to come across, they're going to worry that they're going to be ridiculed for being expressive or whatever. And I think it happens with everything, with cooking dinner for you or for whatever it is. If you make jokes about stuff, they can build up and build up. Do you know what I mean? Is there any way of, like, trying to be aware that you're doing that, or trying to catch yourself?
I think sometimes in those cases it would need to be the other person
Needs to just say
something, really. And then you might notice yourself. Because how can you rectify something you don't realise that you're doing?
Yeah.
But if somebody says, you know, that kind of hurt my feelings and I'd prefer you not to say that again, and I've noticed that you do it, I don't think you mean it, but sometimes you perhaps need to think about what you say before you say it.
Yeah, definitely.
So you could grow from that. Ugh, that fly.
If you watch on YouTube, you might just see us, like, swatting our faces or whatever. There's been a fly for the past few hours and I'm just getting very irate. Okay, fantastic. And again, anyone listening, I think that it's usually these issues are coming from a good place. People don't mean to be nasty to their partner.
Some people do.
I like to believe that generally people are good. Generally. It flies back. And you can cause someone to feel very insecure completely innocently, and just to try and be aware of, well, it takes two, but be aware of what you're saying, but also communicate with the other person. Be like, I've noticed you're not dancing as much, or you're not singing. You're not singing around the house anymore, and, like, I just wondered why. And if your partner's a terrible singer, that's fine. They're enjoying themselves. Let them enjoy it, and you know, have that discussion with them. And they might say, well, last time I sang in the shower, you mimicked me and took the mix, so I don't do it anymore. And that's really sad. So just try and talk to each other.
Communicate.
Yeah.
Is a big thing, isn't it?
Well, like we talked about in our relationships episode.
Yeah. Talk. What harm will it do?
You'll both feel less insecure and everyone wins.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's a great place to end.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching. If you don't follow us on Instagram, it's @OnTheSofaPod. We're also on YouTube. Next week, we're going to be looking at... these next two are going to be really good. We're looking at self-esteem next week, which you believe isn't a skill that you learn. It's more something that you have to develop and work on, rather than something that you can acquire. Is that right?
Well...
We'll dive into it next week, hey? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next Monday.